Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a strategy video for the 2021 Bermuda Championship. Now, I contemplated whether or not to do a video for this tournament because this is usually an alternate event. I'm not positive if it is considered as such, but the WGC HSBC should have been played this week, but that was canceled due to COVID. So we just have this as a standalone, basically. I don't think it really matters whether or not they get the full FedEx points, whether or not you're playing this. Well, it matters if you're playing this. I don't think it matters whether or not it's for FedEx Cup points. You know, these players doing that. So basically, this is a B tier event, and we have, well, you can almost call it a glorified web.com. Actually, it's not what it's called anymore. Corn Ferry Tour event. But yeah, it was the old web.com. So anyways, basically, I don't have really a full show for you guys, but we're going to cover the golf course. We'll cover shot shape. I know a few golfers in the field what their shot shape is. I don't have a whole roster for everyone in the field. Again, this is a B tier tournament, so we're going to see a lot of golfers we're never going to see again until next year or until another alternate event. So it'll be a shorter video, but it'll still be kind of a dive into the stats and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get into the tournament fact sheet. So we are at Port Royal Golf Course in Southampton, Bermuda, hence the Bermuda Championship. It's a short par 71, so 6,800 yards, and I heard there is some elevation to go with this, so it plays even shorter. I'm not exactly positive how much shorter, but either way, 6,800 yards, not very long. And a par 71, it's a kind of a shorter 71. This seems to be close to average green size. I don't think they're really tiny greens by any stretch. To me, at 6,000 square feet, it's around average. 88 bunkers. I don't really care about bunkers, but in a field like this, it might matter. You know, I think of PGA Tour players actually thriving in bunkers because it's really the only way that you can actually control a golf ball around the green, because you never know what kind of lie you're going to get in the rough. Same thing applies for the bunker, but it's much easier hitting out of sand than it is thick rough. So, maybe bunkers matter in this one, but there's no way we're going to be able to determine which golfers actually have great bunker skills or anything like that. Again, it's a B tier tournament. So 5 holes that water's in play. Most of the course actually plays inland from the coast, so it's really close to the coast of Southampton, near the ocean. So I don't think, this course apparently gets really windy. And obviously, we could think of every other golf course that's close to a coast, like Pebble Beach, any of the English, tournaments, I should say, the Open Championship, that kind of stuff. Probably not going to see as heavy as wind. I think when I look on the forecast, it was like 25 miles an hour. So either way, I think, I guess my short conversation about wind, good ball strikers hit the ball through the wind. You don't have to worry about who hits it low or who hits it high. I mean, obviously, a ball that's in the air longer is going to get affected more by the wind, but you could actually apply that to golfers who hit the ball far. Believe it or not, hitting a low ball isn't going to matter nearly as much as hitting a solid golf ball. Sure, these pros can do it, but having a penetrating ball flight matters so much more than who hits it low. So no matter what you hear out there when it comes to you want to find golfers who hit the golf ball low, that stuff does not apply. That is from amateur people trying to analyze golf. They don't understand ball flights or ball mechanics. So don't listen to that. I don't know how to show you or to tell you who hits a golf ball better than another guy, but anyone who has good ball striking stats, I would rely more heavily on that. So approach, that's fine. I don't even know really what else to tell you, because if you try to use some of those fantasy sites that have wind, like strokes gained into the wind, that is all subjective. Like there's not an objective stat. Meaning like one golfer could have faced a 35-mile-an-hour gust on 6 of his 18 holes, while somebody else, either just prior to him that finished an hour earlier than him may have only had like, that 35-mile or 25-mile-an-hour gust like 2 holes out of 18. So it doesn't really apply. And unless someone's going hole by hole, measuring the wind on every single shot, by the way, golfers more often than not take their time. They let a gust go by them, and then they just try to play in a more consistent wind. So really trying to find strokes gained into the wind is not going to be helpful. I believe like someone had like Rory McIlroy was one of the worst golfers in the wind based off of his strokes gained, wind or whatever. One of the best golfers in the wind is Rory McIlroy. So, and that's going to be a subjective take by me. I don't have data to actually back that up. But regardless, he hits a penetrating ball flight. That ball pierces the wind. So either way, my long spiel about wind is don't look into it, honestly. If you are, just look at your better ball strikers. That's really all that matters. But it also kind of goes hand in hand. You do need to know how to play this golf course. So if there are golfers in this field that have played tournaments where there was, heavy wind, I'd say maybe pepper those guys. But I'm not going to care about it, honestly. I'm looking for golfers who can score low. Wind is just a small, minute detail of this golf course. So either way, we will be done with that. We are on Bermuda grass. We were on bent the last couple weeks, but guess what? Nobody except for Brennan Todd played in those other tournaments. So we don't have any stats to look at last week. We really don't have anything. The last Bermuda golf course that was played was the Sanderson Farms Championship. So you could go back to Sanderson and look at that. I have Bermuda on my spreadsheet, so we'll get into that and see who's the best in the field overall, dating back to 2013 and also from last year. So you can look forward to that later on in this video. Course architect, Robert Trent Jones. Now, I don't have a database yet that has this information in, so I couldn't tell you what other golf courses Robert Trent Jones, that the PGA Tour has played on, that he has architected or designed, whatever. I guess I don't know. I don't know what his primary course layout or design focuses on. So if you do, go for it. It's not terrible using the architect and looking at results from the architect. I think that's a good idea, but I don't have anything for you guys. Before we go any further, the numbers scrolling down below are your top Bermuda golfers in the field. So I have your top 5 overall, and right now that's going across your 2020 Bermuda average. So that was all from last year. You can see Cameron Tringale is number 1. Again, we'll get into the spreadsheet, but in case you're wondering what those numbers are that float on the bottom, it's the grass stats basically. So let's go ahead and go right into the spreadsheet. Now I've started doing this for the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, where I kind of go into a course breakdown, determining what kind of shot shape is required. I read descriptions I went to the website where the Port Royal golf course is, read the description, and then I look at a satellite image of the hole to determine, how it doglegs, what's in front of the green. If I was envisioning playing this golf course, what kind of shot shapes would I try to hit into the green? I like to move the ball both directions. So I've never really mentioned that in any of my other videos, but I like to shape shots into greens based off of where the pin is. So most of what I have on the screen is the most advantageous shot shape. It isn't necessarily required to do well. It's just if there is a hole where the green is shaped in a way where it's wider per se. For golfers who hit a draw or a fade, I'm going to put draw or fade. So a lot of what you see on the screen, if you zoom in or pause the video, read it, it'll say shaped for a draw. Now, shaped for a draw, I wish I could put it on the screen for you guys, but really it's, if you're looking at the hole, the front of the green is going to be front right, and the back of the green is going to be back left. And so it's going to make kind of a shape like this. So this would be front of the green, this would be back of the green. If we hit a draw into this, that means the ball's coming from here, and it's going to be able to basically use any of this green. But if you hit a fade, the hole basically gets narrow. If there's a skinny strip that's going this way, if you hit a fade against it, you're basically going perpendicular, of the hole. And what that just ends up doing is, if it's skinny in that direction, you're making it way more narrow than you need to. So you have a smaller landing zone. But if you're going with the green, the shot shape with the green, it opens up the hole so much more. It opens up the green, I should say, so much more, because now your ball gets to go, it's curving and then it straightens out. So now you have a longer green that you get to hit your approaches into. Now, this is a short golf course, so a lot of these holes, shot shape just doesn't matter, because they're going to, these pros are going to have wedges in their hands. You're not going to shape a shot off of a wedge. So anything less than 120 yards, you're really not shaping anything. You don't need to. And you could also make that argument, like anyone that goes 120 to, 140 is pretty. 140 and in, you can make that argument you don't need a shot shape for. Because most golf balls are going to land by the hole and zip backwards, or past the green and zip towards the hole, that kind of thing. I don't think shot shape really is required on a lot of these holes. Now, we have par fives where going for the green in 2 is going to matter. That's where you're really going to find, low scores are on the par fives. So having the preferred shot shape is going to be very advantageous. So long spiel there. Hopefully you had time. If not, pause the video now so you can actually, read some of the information on the screen. But I'm just going to get right down to, I actually didn't calculate this. Oh my goodness. So for approach shots, we have 7 holes where there are draws. Feel silly for not having this completed. 2 holes where there's fades. So we talk about that right now. A lot of the greens are shaped in a way where you'd want to hit a draw. So for a lefty, that'd be hitting a fade. I forget to mention that every once in a while, where I don't mention what I mean by a fade or a draw. That is not universal for both handedness. It is only for right-handed golfers. So I'm only looking at right-handed shot shapes. You just flip them for lefties. So if we do have a lefty in the field, probably want to hit a fade. Let's see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 par 3s. So that means there's only 13. There's 14. Let's see, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, there'd be 14 total holes where driving is available. And then we just do the difference of that. So 0 holes off the tee that require a draw. 1 hole requires a fade. And I had that on hole 2. And I think it's primarily because there are bunkers that guard a lot of the bunkers for these off the tee shots. There's a lot of bunkers set at 260 to 290 yards at this hole, or at this golf course. And same thing applies here. The slight dogleg right could just be for longer hitters. I think shorter hitters, it doesn't apply. But I'm assuming everyone is around that 280 to 300 range. And if that's the case, you'd want to hit a fade off the tee here. But yeah, off the tee really won't matter. Approach, like I said before, 7 holes where draws matter. Now, any of the holes where you see it doesn't matter, basically the any's right here, rule of thumb is go with a fade. So I think this golf course probably a little bit more forgiving for any shot shape. So I do think though some of these holes that do have that bunkers either guarding, short left or in the shape of a draw, I think at least 1, maybe 2 rounds, it's going to matter. Otherwise, other than that, it's not. So doesn't really look like so much shot shape applies, but if we are looking at it, we want to target golfers that hit draws. I usually what I go through is I talk about the bucket system. This tournament was played for the first time last year, so this is similar to the Zozo and the CJ Cup, although not so much CJ Cup, but Zozo, where we only had 1 year of data, and that's really difficult to use any kind of like last year bucket. And I said this earlier in the video, but nobody but Brendan Todd played in the tournament last week. So we really don't have last week buckets either, nor do we have last week stats. We could use, Brendan Todd's stats, but really, I don't think it really matters, honestly. Brendan Todd is the most expensive golfer here in this field. He won this tournament last year, and that's primarily why. And plus, he's just been playing really good golf this whole last year. I'll talk more about Brendan Todd later, but just to go back on the whole last week thing, that's why I'm not going to cover last week's stats. But I did give each one of these golfers a last year bucket score. Reason being, more often than not, every tournament is similar to the other when it comes to the last year bucket. So what I did this week is I gave last year ones to golfers who did not play last year. So the number 1 ranking over here, so whenever you see a 1, that means those are golfers who did not play last year. 2s are golfers who finished 1st to 20th. 3s are those that missed the cut. And then 4s go 20 to 40. 5s go 60 to 80. And again, this is all last year finishing positions. And then our 6th place is the 60 to 80. So that's how I have ranked these. And it's primarily, again, because every tournament has similar numbers of that. Sometimes the missed cuts are ranked 2. Sometimes the 1st to 20 is ranked 1. But more often than not, your number 1 ranked bucket are always golfers who did not play the year before. And then it's followed by 1 to 20 and then missed cut. So that is how I have ranked my buckets this week. And I think it's really good. So going left to right for the rest of this spreadsheet, we'll cover the sweet spot number right now. The sweet spot number is it's considering scoring averages higher than usual. I'm looking at scoring average. I'm looking at their percentage of rounds under 70, for each tournament they play in. I'm looking at their fantasy points per game. I'm looking at their last year bucket score as well. So I'm incorporating all of those facets. It's more about scoring for me this week than it's going to be bucket system or anything like that. So that's kind of how I have this presented. And then I'm also looking at pricing groups. So I'm incorporating pricing groups into this. Brendan Todd is only in this group. So basically anyone 10K and above, that's one group. This is group number 1, if you want to call it that. And I found a good way to incorporate even scoring throughout the entire field. I was having issues before with 6K golfers. They just tended to happen or to be ranked higher than any other one. And I couldn't find like a weighting score per se, something to weight that bucket down or that group down. So I think I did it pretty decently this week. So how this is going to read, now I have it sorted by top to bottom. I forget that I also put this on Anchor, so I have to explain this to the audio listeners. The SweetSpot ranking I have now in descending order from top to bottom. Pat Perez is number 1, and it's not even close. Why this is? I mean, it's a lot to do with the scoring average. It's his scoring average. It's his lowest round. It's his percentage of rounds under 70. What else do I cover? So basically, here you go. These are the only things I'm incorporating in the score. Which is rounds under 70. That's the percentage, scoring average, DK points in the last year bucket. And then I multiply it by the differential of scoring average and lowest round. So Pat Perez is SweetSpot ranking. It's number 1, but his score is 141. Denny McCarthy is second with 122. So I'll list off the top 10. Pat Perez, Denny McCarthy, Luke Liss, Brendan Todd, Harold Varner III, Wyndham Clark, Peter Malnati, Stuart Sink, Cameron Tringali, Johnny Vegas, and then Doc Redman. Is that? I went one too far, but that's where Doc Redman places in that whole mix. And he is a last year bucket 4, so it makes it a little bit more impressive. I do know Doc Redman primarily hits a fade. So if I were to tell you that, you know, we want to be targeting golfers that hit more of draws than fades, it would kind of keep him off the list a little bit. But I don't know exactly how super important it's going to be. I will also say this, though. Hitting a fade into the wind it will be affected by the wind much more than a draw is. So now I'm also kind of thinking it's definitely more advantageous to hit a draw. And if you don't know why, fades put more backspin on it. So that's, I always say, rule of thumb is to hit a fade because backspin gives you control. You, off the tee, the ball lands and stops. And that is what golfers want more of. They don't want a ball that just keeps tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and then finds the rough. So hitting a fade is much more controllable. Also, you put more backspin on it, hitting it into the greens, so it has more stopping power. If you were ever wondering how to hit one of those shots that spin backwards, easier to do so with a fade. Just personal experience, so much easier to hit a ball that juices back hitting a fade than it is with a draw. So yeah, I guess hitting a draw, it would be really important. Now, I don't have every golfer up here in their shot shape, but I can tell you who hits a draw just by looking at this. Pat Perez hits a draw. I'm not sure what Denny McCarthy hits. Luke Liss hits a fade. Brendan Todd hits a draw. Harold Varner III, I think, hits it relatively straight. I want to say I lean towards him hitting a draw. I have seen him hit a fade. So now I'm questioning myself if I've ever seen him hit a draw. I know I've seen him hit a fade. So that one's probably up in the air, but I think probably hits a draw. Wyndham Clark, no idea. Peter Malnati, let's see. He played with Bryson. What tournament was that? It was Bryson's last tournament. He hits a bleeder. He hits a cut. Stuart Sink, and trying to remember what he does. I do remember seeing him hit a draw. So, I mean, I think he can hit a draw if he needs to. No idea what Cameron Tringali hits. Johnny Vegas hits a draw. Doc Redman hits a fade. Charlie Hoffman, it's a fade. Scott Piercy hits a fade. Wesley Bryan hits a draw. And I'm not going to continue going forward because I really don't know the rest of these guys here off the top of my head. So really, you know, Pat Perez, someone really interesting playing. Same with Harold Varner III, as well as Wesley Bryan. Those are 3 picks of mine that I gravitate towards primarily because they're low scores. I mean, Wesley Bryan has one of the best rounds under 70 percentage. So to me, playing Wesley Bryan is more advantageous than it isn't, especially at $7,800. I never talk about value because it's something that, when I look at the top 10 leaderboard, the numbers are always up and down. But if I was trying to sell you more on Wesley Bryan, he has a 0.953 value. So one would basically be perfectly in line with the points that points per game scored versus his salary. Anything over one means they're value. Well, they're overvalued, not overvalued. I don't want to say that. Basically, they're too cheap if their number is over one. The number is less than one, then it's like their price is not as forgiving. They're priced pretty high. 0.75 I think is average, so that's kind of where we see Pat Perez. A lot of these other guys we see a little bit lower. So like Brendan Todd, for instance, he's 0.59. 0.6 is bad. Like 0.6 and lower, not good. You get no value out of that. 0.75 is okay, and then obviously you get closer to 1, you find better value. I'm not saying those are avoid plays for the golfers that don't have great value. They probably are going to fit. I mean, the strength of field in this tournament is very low. So you might have to wait, expectations of this tournament. I'd say it is probably 0.75 of a regular tour event. So seeing Pat Perez at 0.75, it's not going to be bad. He's going to be he's spot on with where he should be. Maybe. Anyways, that is the SweetSpot rank. Went over a couple guys, gave you their shot shapes. Yeah, that's all that I have for that. So let's go ahead and talk about tee time pairings. Like I said, I'm going to go left to right. Usually I cover course fit first and then recent form. Since this is kind of a unique time, a unique tournament, I'm just going to make this unique. Do it a little bit differently. So looking at the spreadsheet, so my YouTube viewers, you can obviously see this. I have it highlighted, and how the color coding works is if it's red, it means he is the only golfer. It really is a comparison against. Here, let me do something really quick. That way we can see this a little bit better. We'll hide that. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at their scoring average, and I have totaled up, well, not so much totaled up, but I've populated all the scoring averages that I can find. In time, this will be my own scoring average. Right now, I'm kind of using someone else's. You're not supposed to use this website's stuff. I'm not going to say I do, so I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's super simple. Everyone uses it. So anyways, and no, it's not Fantasy National. I don't use that site. Anyways, scoring average. The field average is 71.29. So basically any golfer that I see that's under 71.29, I'm going to highlight. And then the rest of the golfers in that group, if they are also under 71.29, I'm going to highlight them. Now, I will admit I did highlight some that were 71.3 and 71.34. I know they're not lower than 71.29, but it's good enough, close enough. So those highlighted in red, I'll just go red, and then I'm just going to tell you my favorite plays, I suppose. No, I'll do this. So those highlighted in red, Matt Jones, first tee time of the day. His scoring average is 70.82, so he's highlighted red. Kelly Craft would be the second guy. I'm not going to touch Kelly Craft. Peter Uihlein would be the third golfer, and he's actually in the fifth group. And I'm probably not going to touch Peter Uihlein either. Charlie Hoffman comes next. He ends up being in the ninth game, the 9th group of this tournament, teeing off at 7:15 in the morning. He's playing with DA Points and Kevin Stadler. That's not good. I don't like that. I'm probably not going to play any Charlie Hoffman. Max Homa would be the next guy. He's playing with Will Zalatoris and Kevin Tway. I like Will Zalatoris, and the reason why Will Zalatoris is not highlighted is because he doesn't have enough tournaments under his belt for this said site to have stats of him. So I don't have anything on Will Zalatoris, but I do like Will Zalatoris. So we're going to actually change the color of Max Homa to yellow because we're going to include Will Zalatoris there. I actually do like Will Zalatoris. He hits a draw. So definitely something to consider. The next red, again, we're only looking at the red ones, Doc Redman. Now, a lot of people like Doc Redman. Don't blame me for it. He's playing with Sean Stephanie and Ryan Blom, both of which don't have scoring average stats recorded, so I don't have anything on those guys, meaning only Doc Redman is highlighted. I'm not saying, play him because of this or don't play him because of this. I'm going to be reserved. I'm probably not going to play a lot of Doc Redman. 10-4 is expensive. We haven't seen him in a while, and the ball shape or the shot shape doesn't work as efficiently at this golf course as if he were to hit a draw. He hits a fade. Anyways, going down, Rob Oppenheim. I wish I knew what his shot shape was because I probably would roster him. He's playing with Vincent Whaley and James Nicklaus, golfers I don't know anything of. Vaughn Taylor would be next. Seamus Power after that. Emiliano Grillo is playing with Brian Gay, and believe it or not, first appearance that we've seen of this guy in a long time, Ollie Schneiderjans. I do believe his brother's playing in this, and I think it's his brother. I'm not positive, but Luke Schneiderjans is playing. I really have nothing. I mean, Brian Gay I know can get low. Obviously, his scoring average does not reflect that, but in past memories of mine, I know he can shoot low scores when he needs to. So, might be worth a play. I'm probably going to stay away from Emiliano Grillo. Ryan Armour would be the next guy. He's in the 30th group, teeing off at 11:35, so he's in the afternoon wave, early in the afternoon wave. Ryan Armour's not terrible. Bermuda guy, so it wouldn't be unwise to play him. I think it might be a decent play. Rafa Cabrera-Bello comes in next, and again, these are all golfers just singled out in their groups because of their scoring average. RCB, sure, I don't mind playing him. 78th golfer in the world, 78th ranked golfer in the world, probably one of the top ranked golfers in this field, so it's not terrible. Mark Anderson comes in next, and he's in the 37th group. I don't know much about Mark Anderson. I don't care. I'm not going to play him. Chris Baker, a lot of guys like him because they think he can make a lot of birdies. Points per game isn't there. Scoring average really isn't there. Low round of 63, though, so that's not terrible. Probably not going to play him, and he is playing with Kramer Hickok, who is like an up-and-coming star. Like, not star, but an up-and-coming... He was good on the web.com. Sorry, Corn Ferry Tour. And Luke Schneiderjans. So I think that's Ollie's brother. Ollie, who knows? But the last guy would be Chase Seifert. I don't think I'll be playing much of Chase. He is a last year bucket 6. All right, so going through the yellow golfers, I'll just go through this fast. Wyndham Clark with Scott Stallings. Not terrible. They're playing with Anirban Lahiri. I think I like that group a lot. Luke List, Patrick Rogers, George McNeil. I do like Luke List and Patrick Rogers. They hit similar shot shapes. I don't know. I'm just a sucker for Patrick Rogers. That's all I have to say. I really, you'd probably be best to fade this group. Actually, I do think Luke List hits the ball well in the wind, so there's that. Next group, Cameron Tringali with Will Gordon. Love it. Scott Piercy's in the next group with Wesley Bryan. For whatever reason, I don't have a scoring average with him. Oh, yeah, that's right. He didn't have a lot of events last year, so he doesn't. But his scoring average is amazing. So let's go ahead and mark this green. And we'll come back to that group. Next guy or next group would be Brendan Todd and Jason Duffner. They're playing with Danny Willett. I actually don't mind that. I mean, Danny Willett can get hot fast, so not terrible. I like that group quite a bit. Next one after that, Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, and Kevin Tway. We were talking about Max Homa when I realized, Will Zalatoris doesn't have stats to provide a scoring average that I can, analyze. So, hey, they're both yellow. I think that's not a bad pairing to go with. Their odds seem to reflect that as well. And their official World Golf ranking, not terrible. Next yellow group, Ben Martin, Aaron Baddeley. I'm probably just going to fade that. I don't care one way or another. I can't stand rostering Aaron Baddeley. I've been burned by him way too many times. His SweetSpot rank score is not even good. He's 65th in the field for rank, so he's right in the middle. But either way, I don't care anything about it. Brian Stewart and Bronson Burgoon would be the next one after Baddeley's group. I don't mind this group, honestly. I like Burgoon. He's also playing with Scott Harrington. Now, the only thing I don't like is Stewart and Scott Harrington are both last year bucket fives. So if I'm gonna have to choose a pairing, it's definitely not gonna be Brian Stewart and Scott Harrington. It'll be Brian Stewart and Bronson Burgoon, or Harrington and Burgoon. Either way, not terrible. Next group after that, Bo Hogue and Fabian Gomez playing with Graham Dillette. I don't have anything to say about that. I have a group here that's highlighted in orange, primarily because these guys are fairly young. Christopher Ventura and Justin Suh. Now, frankly, I don't know anything about Justin Suh. I don't even know if that's the way you say his last name. It could be Sue. It's probably Suh. Who knows? Apparently, he was the @1 ranked amateur not too long ago. He might still be. I have no idea. But he's obviously not an amateur in this field. At least I didn't see that he was. So I don't think he is, but maybe. And if he is, that's fine too. He has a lot of talent, as does Christopher Ventura. They're playing with Brandon Hagee. Brandon Hagee's been on the tour for a long period of time. I personally don't mind the group, but I'm going to reserve caution because I have no idea who Justin Suh is. And I don't like Brandon Hagee enough, although his scoring average is very close to the median. Either way, I don't know, but it's highlighted orange because of that factor. Our next yellow group would be Harold Varner III with Brandon Grace. I don't mind the group. They're playing with Bo Hosler. Bo has been very disappointing this whole last year. 2020 was terrible for Bo Hosler. I don't know if he was fighting an injury, but he didn't live up to the hype he kind of came in with the year before. He showed up at a couple of Texas events, maybe just one, the one he lost to Ian Poulter in. So it seemed like he was trending in the right direction, but still. Probably not going to touch that. Next group after that, Denny McCarthy, Henrik Norlander. Like this group. Playing with Robert Streb. Haven't seen Streb much this year or this last year. I'm not positive. I mean, Streb was someone I used to target like back in 2017, 2018. I don't think it's someone to target now, but McCarthy with Henrik Norlander is a very enticing group. Both of them make a lot of birdies. So like that group quite a bit. We actually have our old time group here. We have Henrik Stenson, who didn't play enough events last year to register any scoring average stats. So this could easily be a green ranked group, but because of his lack of stats, it's not. For whatever reason, I do have his lowest round, which ends up being a 69. It's not good. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. That's not good. I'm not sure what his game is like now. I want to say he's had somewhat of a resurgence, but I don't know. I can't trust Henrik Stenson. Maybe in a field like this, sure, but at $9,300, I bet you get disappointed more than you reap the rewards of playing him. But either way, Pat Perez and Stuart Sink. I don't mind either. Obviously, Pat Perez is the thumbnail of the video. He is one of my favorite plays this week. Aaron Wise and Keith Mitchell are next for the groups in yellow. They're playing with Hudson Swafford, and I don't have any scoring averages for Hudson Swafford. He just won the Cross Punta Cana, and then followed up with a very terrible round, very terrible showing the next tournament. So I don't mind that group. It could probably easily be green, but I don't know anything about Hudson Swafford's scoring this year. So I did not include Hudson Swafford, but Hudson Swafford does hit a draw. I do know that from, gosh, way back when. American Express, which used to be the Desert Classic, which used to be Humana Challenge, the one that he won there. I know he hits a draw, so Hudson Swafford's not a bad play. Next group in yellow, Troy Merritt, Bryce Garnett. I really don't have anything to say about those guys. I don't know much about Merritt or Garnett. Actually, I don't mind Garnett, in all honesty. That price, not that price, but his scoring average is really good. And I did roster him earlier this year, and he did provide value. So don't mind that. Johnny Vegas, David Hearn. Vegas, I'll touch. I'm not touching Hearn. So, I mean, that might backfire in my face, but yeah, I really like Johnny Vegas this week. And that recaps the yellow groups. Let's talk about the green ones really quickly. We had Scott Piercy, Wesley Bryan, Russell Knox. Hey, pair any of those guys up together. I wouldn't recommend all three, but doing a combination of two, not terrible. I like it. Adam Schenk, Kyle Stanley, and Tom Lewis. Now, Tom Lewis doesn't have scoring average stats, but he did fire a 61, I think, at the WGC FedEx St. Jude, which is worth mentioning. He finished second that week in a WGC event, the one where Justin Thomas won. So Tom Lewis can go low. He's been very disappointing as of late. Just throwing that out there. So might not be extreme, might not be, let's put it this way. It might be worth a bullet. I wouldn't so much construct your lineups around him, but he is playing with Adam Schenk and Kyle Stanley. Schenk, I like. He can go low. And I think it would fit, this type of field would fit someone like him. Going down to the next group, we have Cameron Percy, Josh Teeter, and Tim Wilkinson, believe it or not. Now, Josh Teeter is north of the average, but very close. I'm going to include him. He also finished top 20 here last year. I don't know much about his game recently, but it might not be worth a speculative play, or it might be worth a speculative play, not be terrible. One of our, I think it's our only group that actually has all three golfers under 71.29, and that is Chesson Hadley, Sepp Straka, and Nick Watney. I don't know what to think of this. Sepp Straka can go low. He has provided a lot of low showdown slates. This last post-COVID, restart or whatever you want to call it. So I don't think Straka is going to be a terrible play. I think he will make the cut. So at $7,600, that's not terrible. He is the 28th ranked golfer in this field, according to my scoring. Not terrible. And pairing him up with Chesson Hadley at $7,200, that's a pretty good 7K combo, honestly. And it will allow you to play a lot of the golfers up top. And that recaps the tee time pairings. Let's go ahead and quickly go into recent form. Now, recent form, if we look at last year's tournament, you see Brendan Todd up here, 40.67. Oh, I'm sorry, that's this year. Looking at last year, he was 73.60, 4 missed cuts. And then at 28th place at the Houston Open prior to entering this tournament. So, recent form wasn't good. And, second place wasn't necessarily good either. I guess in comparison to the rest of the golfers in this field, let's take a look. So if we go top to bottom, we had, actually our two best recent form golfers did finish top 20. So that's actually something good to look at. And then the next guys here, that's not terrible. They all made the cut. So your top 6 golfers in recent form average all made the cut. Not terrible. We have a second place down here. So Harry Higgs was the 30th best golfer with recent form. Scheffler was the 4th. Gay was the 6th. And I'm going with just top 10 finishes here. So those listening, it's not by random, but we're just looking at top 10 golfers. Fabian Gomez finished 7th. He was a 20th golfer in recent form. Hearn finished 8th, and he was the 22nd. Then, of course, Higgs was 30th. Aaron Wise finished 3rd last year, and he was the 37th. Lebioda was the 39th. Wes Roach was the 45th. Ryan Armour was the 51st. And Brennan Todd was your 56th best recent form golfer. So why don't we go ahead and put a filter. Actually, let's go back to the DK page because we can just do it there. Put a filter on. It's already there. So our top guy is Justin Suh. An 11th place finish somewhere, and that was his recent form. Well, let's go check. Where was that? I bet it was Corrales, right? Had to have been Corrales. Did I put one on this one already? I think I did. Okay. Yeah. Recent form average. Jeez. Okay, so recent form, Justin Suh. Wow. Actually played at the Shriners, got 8th and 14th at Corrales Punta Cana. So that's not a terrible play, honestly. So if we were looking at our top 6, last year we had, 4 golfers? Was that true? 4 golfers that are out of the top 6. Yeah, 4 golfers finished top 20, but really only 2 golfers finished top 10. So if we kind of do that same comparison here, we would be looking at golfers like Justin Suh, Harold Varner III, Stuart Sink, Will Zalatoris, Anirban Lahiri, and Emiliano Grillo. Your cheapest golfers, obviously Lahiri at $7,400 and Sink at $7,900. Then Justin Suh at 84 or 87, followed by a bunch of 10K golfers. So, I mean, I think last year Scheffler, I don't have pricing, but I think Scheffler was 10K last year. If this was played on DK, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But definitely worth something to consider. So if we were looking at someone, what was Brennan Todd last year? I already forgot what I said. 56th? Yeah, 56th. Our 56th ranked golfer would be Aaron Wise for recent form. 117th place finish at Sanderson Farms. Now, if we were looking at something similar to Brennan Todd, we'd want to be looking at a bunch of missed cuts, followed up with the last tournament being somewhere in the top 30, top 40. And I don't think, that's not a winner's profile. So I'm not going to be stuck to that kind of thing. But of your golfers that are in the top 60 of recent form, it might be worth grabbing 6 golfers in here. Which I don't think is terrible. It's really just your convictions on who you want to play. So I have it obviously here top to bottom. If I were looking just at my SweetSpot ranking, Harold Varner III, Stuart Sink, Peter Malnati, Doc Redman, Brennan Todd, a bunch of high-priced guys. Adam Schenk at 8,100 that is. That's not terrible. Cameron Tringali, 9,200. Anyways, I'm not going to continue going through that. That was recent form. Scoring average, we kind of already talked about with Time Pairings. Again, I talked about all of the color-coded guys. Those were the ones under 71.29. Your top scoring average belongs to Brendan Todd at 70.19. Harold Varner III, second, 70.30. Denny McCarthy, 70.45. Doc Redman, 70.48. And in 5th place, Will Gordon at 70.52. Low round, this is just kind of looking to see, this is like potential. In my opinion, looking at the low round, their lowest round in 2020, is like, what's their potential of going low? And Brendan Todd, actually is at the top of this list with Denny McCarthy, Wyndham Clark, and Tom Lewis. They all shot 61. And then we got a bunch of people that shot 62. HV3, Doc Redman, Will Gordon, Pat Perez, Johnny Vegas, Rob Oppenheim, and Peter Malnati. I'm sorry, Roger Sloan as well. Honestly, those guys, not terrible plays on Showdown. I'm not going to talk about everyone, but that's, worthwhile. Difference, in my opinion, so I call this the differential. Differential is how volatile a golfer is. Their likelihood of going really low and their likelihood of going really high. If your scoring average is high, but your lowest round is a 61, it means you can go low, but you just weren't doing it, And it could have just been one time he shot 61, and honestly, it could have been what? Like his next round, he could have shot, say, 15 rounds out of 60 under 70. And they were all 69 except for the one. Then it would be like, well, the stat doesn't really matter that much. But again, I'm just showing you the potential. So that is what this on the screen is. For those listening, I'll give you the top 5. Wyndham Clark, Roger Sloan, Peter Malnati, Denny McCarthy, Rob Oppenheim. And then Brendan Todd is actually 6th. So worth a mention, I think. Not terrible. Your best golfers of the best percentage of rounds under 70 belong to Wesley Bryan at 68.75. He's a pretty darn good golfer to roster, and at $7,800, that's not terrible. John Oda, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He's 2nd. He only has 5 rounds, 5 tournaments under his belt. I shouldn't say 5. I think. I'm not exactly sure how many rounds, but it's under 10. He has under 10 rounds of golf under his belt. 62.5%. Not terrible. Your guys that have played a couple more events last year, Cameron Tringali, 44.44% of going under 70. Seamus Power, 43.18. He only has 19 times it's happened. Brendan Todd, HV3, Doc Redman, Henrik Norlander, Scott Stallings. Those kind of round out your top 8 golfers. Your best Bermuda golfers, Henrik Stenson, 30.65. Denny McCarthy, 39.88. Will Gordon, 41.40. Emiliano Grillo, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, Charlie Hoffman, Bill Haas, Jason Duffner, and Russell Knox are your top 10 golfers. Really, the only ones that stand out, obviously, would be Henrik Stenson. Again, my stats go back to 2013, so I'm guessing his average is just that good because it goes back to 2013. It includes everything when he was good. So I'm not sure how to take that, but I really like Denny McCarthy, Will Gordon, Emiliano Grillo, I don't really care so much about RCB, but hey, not terrible on Bermuda. And then you can also see their top 10 percentage, like the percent of times they get in the top 10 at Bermuda tracks. Your value play would be Graham Dillette. $6,300, 25% chance, or 25%. He's finished inside top 10 at Bermuda tracks. But you can see the rest of them up here. I mean, it's pretty surprising. I'll name them off for you guys. Henrik Stenson, Denny McCarthy, Tom Lewis, Graham Dillette, Kiradech, Affie Barnrat, Luke Donald, Jamie Lovemark, Will Gordon, Emiliano Grillo, and Christopher Ventura round off your top 10. For 2020 Bermuda stats, we actually have Cameron Tringali at top, followed by Max Homa, Ricky Barnes, Brendan Todd, Harold Varner III, Denny McCarthy, Doc Redman, Vaughn Taylor, Tom Lewis, and Kramer Hickok. So those are golfers who played in Bermuda events last year. I don't have how many events that actually go under their belt. So really, Cameron Tringali could have just played in one event and finished 19th. Those that actually have a decimal point next to them, you can guarantee they played at least 2 events, if not 3, which obviously the odder the number off to the, in the decimal points, the more tournaments they played. Honestly, that's a good way to look at this column. So I'm not a huge proponent of looking at swing stats, but I would say this. Unfortunately for those just listening in audio, I'm not going to go through all these golfers, but on the screen, I have this sorted from tee to green, and you have your top 20 here. I would say this, pick 3. Pick 3 golfers out of these top 20. I think you probably will find those 3 golfers inside the top 10. Notable names, Will Zalatoris, Doc Redman, Justin Suh, Harold Varner III, Emiliano Grillo, Wesley Bryan, and Scott Piercy. Christopher Ventura also. Not someone I'm going to actively play, but worth mentioning. Here you go with off the tee. Notable names here, Luke List, Will Zalatoris, Christopher Ventura, Will Gordon, Doc Redman, Patrick Rogers, Charlie Hoffman, Wyndham Clark, Scott Piercy. That's it. I don't really find anyone else notable. Strokes gained approach. We have Justin Suh once again. So Suh, not great off the tee, but tee to green, all good. Will Zalatoris also. Then Scott Stallings. Henrik Stenson actually is up here. Emiliano Grillo, Scott Piercy, Russell Knox, and Wesley Bryan. So again, Bryan's up there. Not terrible. Around the green isn't that important, but for you guys that are watching, I'll just leave it here. Green and reg, or I should go back to putting, sorry. Strokes gained putting, here you go. Something that I've been doing, so this is actually the 2021 season. From the beginning of the 2021 season, which was the Safeway Open, up until now. So these are actually pretty fresh stats. Unfortunately, we don't have last week's stats because that'd be awesome. You know, these golfers didn't play last week, so it's really difficult to kind of use this. But what I've noticed, golfers who have positive off the tee, and I actually kind of understand why this happens, but I'm actually gonna go minus 0.3. We want greater than or equal to minus 0.3. So these are basically golfers that have positive off the tee stats, followed by golfers that have negative putting stats. And really what this is going to do is kind of, I'm going to go less than 0.5, because that's kind of what I saw the last couple tournaments. So it doesn't really narrow it down all that much. So we have 58 golfers of all of these guys here. Maybe I should, yeah. I mean, it's not everyone's a negative putter here, but I guess one of the most notable guys would be Will Zalatoris, you know, when it comes to negative putting. I know I put 0.5 up here. It's because in the Zozo and the CJ Cup, I noticed that 0.5 was kind of that threshold. We found like 2 or 3 golfers inside the top 10 that had, you know, positive off the tee with positive putting, but just barely. So that's why I included 0.5. I guess all of the notable golfers, I can just go ahead and talk to you about them. I think Scott Harrington is a notable golfer. So is Chesson Hadley. Hadley actually has a bit more positive putting and obviously he has negative tee to green. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. Will Gordon makes this list. Great off the tee. And putting's not terrible. So Will Gordon, I don't think is a terrible play. I probably will be playing. I think Johnny Vegas and Adam Schenk are all notable golfers to include in this list. Doc Redman actually makes this list as well. Putting isn't terrible. It's around average. Pat Perez is up here. I like seeing that quite a bit. Tom Lewis is on this list too, but I'm not as confident with this one. Primarily, I mean, he has nothing but negative tee to green, off the tee, and approach. So that's difficult. It's like everything going wrong. So maybe I should have included a different number when it came to off the tee. But yeah, we talked about Will Zalatoris, talked about Emiliano Grillo. Scott Stallings makes the list. I don't know what his baseline is for off the tee, but he's fitting that mold of golfer that we like. Jamie Lovemark, believe it or not, is on this list. I like Lovemark. I wish he would do better. I just think he can't put the ball in the hole in the least amount of times possible. Not as good as other ones. Couple more notable ones. Russell Knox, Wyndham Clark, Scott Piercy, Keith Mitchell, Kyle Stanley. I know I selected Joseph Bramlett, but that was by mistake. Patrick Rogers, Luke List. Those are all interesting names. I mean, we get some really bad putters down here. So of all the golfers I just named, I mean, I think it might be advantageous to pick, 4 to 6 of those golfers, honestly. And if you were following along on YouTube, whatever ones that you saw with the bucket system, I think is probably going to be one of the better plays, honestly. It'll be interesting to see if that comes to fruition at the end of this tournament. Not going to talk about green and reg, although I will go ahead and put on the screen for you guys. Also not going to talk about proximity, although might be worth it. We'll see how the review shakes out. I might be eating my words here. And birdie or better, I didn't see actually work out for Shriners or Sanderson Farms, but I didn't really have fresh stats for those either. It didn't work out for CJ Cup or Zozo, so those were limited fields. I don't know exactly what to make of it, but that is all that I have for swing stats. I'm not going to talk about any more, so we will finish there. That's basically going to be a wrap. I mean, we talked about as much as we possibly could about this tournament, about the spreadsheet. I think really, I named a bunch of golfers over and over and over again. If you've heard a golfer's name mentioned more than once, they're probably worth a pretty decent play. I'll probably come back to this video myself, listen to it, and see who I kept talking about. I know Wesley Bryan was one. I know Will Zalatoris was one. Will Gordon was another. Justin Suh, HV3. It actually might check out to be a pretty fun tournament. And it could also disappoint, pretty heavily too. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the review. All right, bye.